Now, for the past several months, the delegates of Y20 Indonesia have discussed and negotiated the policy recommendations for G20 leaders through a month-long process, which was finalized on July the 22nd.
Yes, and the adopted communique focuses on 4 priority areas that greatly matter to youth today. So to delve more into this topic and to find out what these priority topics are, today we are connected to 2022 Y20 Indonesia co-chair Michael Victor Sianipar. Hello, good morning, Mike. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Good morning.
Paul.
There
Good morning, Kai.
Hi there.
So congratulations for wrapping up Y20. We've kept close eye on the particular event. Now, we just have to ask, after a month-long negotiation among delegates from all over the world, and especially for G20 countries, the Y20 summit finally came to a close on Friday night, July 22nd, with the announcement of policy recommendations for the leaders of the world's biggest economies. Now, there's been mention of 4 priority issues that greatly matter to the youth today, that are, of course, youth employment, digital transformation, sustainability, and sustainable and livable planet, and of course, diversity and inclusion, which I've heard is a new topic in addition this year. Could you please tell us more about these topics, Mike?
Okay, thank you, Kai. So first of all, would like to thank you today, of course, for your commitment and also consistency in covering the issues of U20. And I also would like to add that we actually had started negotiation much earlier, not just last month, but ever since February when we kick off the entire events. And we have done 4 pre-summit events all over Indonesia, and finally the summit just a few weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago exactly. And we have decided on 4 priority areas that you have mentioned: youth employment, digital transformation, sustainable and livable planet, and also diversity and inclusion, because we believe that these are the most important and pressing issues of today for youth all over the world, not just in Indonesia. And we have also done research. We have cooperated with a global research institution to actually figure out what kind of topics within these priority areas are relevant for youth in G20 countries. And that's why we come up with these 4 topics. And also the reason why we included diversity and inclusion is because we believe that that is the greatest treasure that Indonesia has to offer to the world. The first 3 issues are, I would say, legacy issues. They have been discussed over the years in U20 events. But this is the first time in a U20 forum where diversity and inclusion become a standalone issue. And this is also because we believe that the most important thing that Indonesia has is our diversity, and that we can still have unity in that diversity. And that is what we showcase throughout the event to the youth delegates coming from all over the world. We show them the diversity of Indonesia in our pre-events. And also at the summit, we also show them that we have diversity even in Jakarta and also in Bandung, the 2 cities that become the hosts.
Right. Mike, let's talk a little bit about one of these legacy issues you mentioned, which is sustainable and livable planet. A 2020 BBC News Round survey revealed that nearly 3 out of 4 young people today, or youths, about 73%, were worried about the state of the planet right now. No surprise, because we are in a critical state, as we report on every day, especially with the weather and climate change. And about 64% of the respondents said they don't believe people in power currently were listening to them enough when they did talk about it. This survey illustrated that the youth of today are anxious. So how influential is the voice of this young generation at this upcoming G20?
So I will say that the result of BBC survey is actually in line with the research that we also have done with our own survey. And that is also the reason why at the SLP track, we set out ambitious goals for the issue. To name a few, there's this statement, there's a clause in the communique that requires, or we advocate that there needs to be a stop for deforestation of primary forests by 2023 and all deforestation by 2030. There's also a commitment among the U20 delegates that we should advocate to our governments to commit to phase out single-use plastic across the G20 by 2025 and end production and use of virgin plastic by 2040. And there are many other clauses. And these clauses, the communique itself, is already available online, and anyone can have access to it. But to add to that answer, I think it's very important and very crucial. That is also the reason why we are going to have some post-summit activities to advocate these recommendations. We don't want the communique to just be a document. We don't want this to end just being an agreement that we have come up with but has no consequences. So we will advocate through the relevant engagement groups and working groups within the G20 framework and also the relevant ministries. And there's also this statement among the youth. We didn't include this in the communique, but everyone wanted to include it, but we tried to be realistic. But there's a statement that we hope G20 leaders would have time with the U20 delegates at the summit so that we can also express these opinions, these recommendations directly to them.
Yeah, Mike, in regards to, 3 out of 4 is quite a large number, and many youths feel like they're not being heard. And the reason one of these is considered a legacy issue is it's been brought up time and time again. And, maybe not enough action has been done. So do you think that this G20 will make a difference this time around?
I think that will depend on the host country as the leader. And this is a challenge for Indonesian government, for President Jokowi, I would say,
right,
because the leader has the authority to actually set out the agenda and also lead the discussion. And I think this will be interesting also because Indonesia is a developing country. I would say we have a quite different perspective from developed countries about how to tackle the issues. But there needs to be a strong leadership from the president. And of course, we as U20 organizers are also willing and are committed to support that leadership in the G20 framework.
Nice.
Well, that's the beauty of the G20. It's not just developed countries, but the members of the G20 are actually a lot of it, just like Indonesia,
Yes,
large developing economies with similar priorities, of course, and also similar vulnerabilities. And just to note, though, I really think that times have changed.
Yeah.
The priorities have changed. Our world has changed. The way our climate has changed.
The world is on fire.
Exactly,
Literally.
the world is on fire. Literally, I think this is the right moment for the young people really to express themselves because, hey,
Right,
we have a different life. We have a different perspective than currently the generation that is in power right now. And I think the young people have every right to be able to express it. And one of it, of course, another very, very important topic is during this pandemic in the last couple of years, digitalization has been catapulted, right? The growth of digitalization has become completely different climate. And, having that said, though, it's the Youth 20s also urging the G20 leaders to establish a multi-stakeholder digital well-being charter by 2023. Now, this is very interesting. Digital well-being charter. Now, in a recently adopted communique that you've, of course, mentioned before, can you elaborate more on this, Mike? Because this is very interesting. I don't think digital well-being is a concept that we've heard a lot in the last couple of years, even though maybe this has been one of the legacy topics.
Right, exactly. So especially after the pandemic, we realized that there's growing dependence with digital devices, and we need to explore our relationship with these devices. And we see that a lot of the youth especially are affected by how they use devices and also access to the digital world, the digital economy. And in the communique, we advocate that there needs to be principles prioritizing mental health, suicide prevention, prohibition of cyber extortion, child safety, consumer protection, and the provision of affordable, accessible, confidential, age-appropriate, and inclusive digital well-being services. So digital well-being matters. I think it's an issue that has not been prioritized by authorities, by regulators, and also by the private sector. But it has a huge impact on the youth and also the children. And it is one of many important proposals throughout the communique, but I agree, I would say that this is one of the most important. And we are hoping that the Indonesian government will take up on this. And looking at the best practices around the world, actually, we would say that the Middle East has discussed this issue the most, the Middle East region, compared to other regions in the world. In Saudi Arabia, they have this forum, SYNC. It's a digital well-being summit that was actually done earlier this year. And our delegates also participate in that event. But we need to look at best practices from across the world. And we are hoping that the Indonesian government, including the ministry and the Digital Economy Working Group, to also discuss this and make this into a priority issue that can be adopted in the leaders.
I think it's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Because well-being is different from regulating and policying.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to create a bigger market and bigger opportunities for private sectors as well to be involved and more impactful in this. So great highlighting, guys.
Yeah, I'm glad because this digital era is such a double-edged sword to me.
Yep.
I have a little one that's not even technically old enough to use gadgets, but she does anyway because we're in the
'cause
middle of
they
a
have
pandemic,
to.
right?
Yes.
And then we always focus on all the main things that we see in front of us, but we don't realize the long-term effects and impact that it may have on my child, who is not technically a youth yet, but will be a youth, and who knows what things will be like by that time. So I'm glad you guys did tackle this topic. Now, another topic that we did not expect to see about is, for the first time in Y20 history, historically underrepresented communities such as those with disabilities or PWD, indigenous people, or local communities, or IPLC, and refugees were also invited as official observers. Now, as a result of the discussions, which are the issues that came up to be of most concern during these discussions?
Yes, so the reason why we include representatives from underrepresented group from the disabilities community, refugees, and also local communities is because we want to walk the talk. I remember being a delegate in U20 Japan 2019. We had a long discussion about refugee issues, and I think refugees also displaced or moving people are increasing issue globally, especially with conflicts everywhere. But this is the first time that we feel like it's not enough to just talk about refugees. What we need to do is to have refugees talk themselves. Instead of us representing them, they should be representing themselves in these forums.
Yes.
That's the reason why we invited them to be a part of U20 as well. Most of them are put in the diversity and inclusion track because we believe that that is the area that is most relevant to them. But in the U20 forum, they also have access to all other areas. We have cross-cutting working groups in which they can also comment on the other topics as well. But for the most part, we believe that the issue of diversity and inclusion is basically relevant to all the other issues.
Important.
Yeah, I certainly think it's very interesting in the way you mentioned walk the talk, because in the previous Y20 there were no representatives, and you wanted to make sure that this year that those it's not inclusion if they're not included, right?
Right.
So
And
it's great.
more than just us doing the talking for
Exactly.
them. It's great that they're being shown how to actually do it.
Yes, yes. So, out of curiosity, you guys have highlighted so many great things and great perspectives of the youth generation now. What are the benefits of the Y20 Summit for the Indonesian youth per se? Or how can the Indonesian youth benefit from the communique or, things that you've highlighted in your communique that could, possibly translate to policies in the future?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, we always try to ensure that U20 belongs to the Indonesian youth, that this is not just a meeting of the elites, the youth elites of the world. This doesn't just belong to the youth in Jakarta or Bandung, the place where we are holding the event for the summit. Hence, we decided to hold the event in various areas of Indonesia, in Palembang, in Lombok, in Balikpapan, in Manokwari. And we also have plans to have post-summit events in Solo, possibly also Surabaya and Bogor, because we want to be as inclusive as possible. We want to engage as many youth as possible, because we believe that U20 and G20 belongs to them. There needs to be ownership among the youth, that they actually have a say, that they actually have access to the leadership through the U20 forum. And this is what we reminded to all the delegates coming to the U20 summit, that U20 is the premier global forum for young people. This is the closest we can get to the world leaders. I know of some other youth forums in the world and also in Indonesia, but nothing as formal, nothing as influential as U20. So if we cannot utilize the U20 forum as a tool to reach the leaders, then we are failing. Then I would say that perhaps there's no better option that we have. So that is the challenge that we have as organizers. In the next few months, the summit is over, yes. We have many important points in the communique that we have to communicate, that we have to advocate, but the task actually lies after the communique.
Okay.
I would say that coming up with the communique is difficult, but it's much more difficult to implement them.
Yeah.
And in order to do so, we need to have ownership by the youth and also for the youth.
Yeah, you can plan all you want, but it's a matter of execution as well.
I'm just curious now. The communique is right. It's done, and you want to make sure that at least the Indonesian leaders of the working groups and everything will get to also consider your communique. Are you going to host events or special meetings, negotiations with these ministries to make sure that they understand the communique? And hopefully, if you get the green light, Indonesia as presidency, are you confident that that Y20 will get the chance to be able to communicate your communique by yourself? That would be interesting.
Yeah, well, we are trying to be optimistic, of course, and we understand that in any government, including Indonesia, it's important to lobby. It's important to find access and make access to those in power. That's why we have some plans already in mind. First of which is to help hold post-summit events. For example, in Solo, we are in communication with Gibran, the mayor of Solo, and we are going to invite youth leaders from across Indonesia. So if we have concluded the communique on the global level, it is time now to bring that back to the national level and the local level. So that's going to happen in Solo, and also in Surabaya, and also in Bogor. So 3 post-summit events. And other than that, we are going to hold bilateral meetings with other engagement groups and groups of G20. So we are going to deliver the communique directly, and we want to make sure that the points that are written in U20 communique would also resonate in other working groups and engagement groups communiques. So let's say if there are 5 engagement groups that say the same thing about the importance of a digital well-being charter, we are confident that if many other engagement groups say the same thing, hopefully the leaders, the president, will include that in the leaders' declaration as well. So that's the second means for us to advocate this further. And lastly, we also plan to coordinate with not just within Indonesia, but the delegates from other countries, from other G20 countries. They're also as excited. Even right now, they are translating the communique to their languages so that it can be read by more people. And we have plans to coordinate with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Hopefully, they are open to this. That maybe the Indonesian embassies in all these countries can hold events, engaging Indonesian students, PPI, the International Student Association, Indonesian Student Association in these countries, and then inviting the government officials from the respective countries to discuss the U20 communique in Indonesia. So something we will do within Indonesia to lobby the ministries and also the president, but also something we are hoping that other delegates from other countries will do the same in their countries through their G20 officials.
It's great strategy. I always believe in strength in numbers, and the more that you have on board, the larger voice that you certainly have. Mike, thank you so much for your time and for this latest update. You're really smart and well-spoken young man. I really wish we had more youth like you during my time, but I'm really proud, and I believe I speak for everyone here, that we're really glad to have you as co-chair for the Y20 representing Indonesia. Good luck, and we'll see you. I guess we'll talk to you again before the G20, hopefully.
Yes, I'm looking forward to
so
seeing the reactions of the Indonesian youth to the communique that you will be presenting as well.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Stay safe. Have a great week.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
You
That
too.
was-